Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 61 of the Video Games Ahoy Podcast. Woo! Yeah! I'm your host, Jonathan Radford, and today I'm with Zac Hamilton.
Hello.
Just
us today, isn't
me
it?
and you, Zac. This is gonna.
Yeah,
This.
I feel like it's been a while since we've done one of these.
I don't know if we've ever done one just me and you. This could go like one of two ways. This could be like one of the best, or like me and you just going off tangent. Within the first 2 minutes, me and you have just gone off tangent and we're talking about something completely not related to.
That sounds much more likely.
Yeah, it does. It does sound quite likely. Hello to everyone in the chat. Obviously, we're doing these doing these live now, which is a lot of fun. Just a lot of news. How's things with you, Zac? We were just talking about the heat.
It's all good here. Well, I'm up in the north where we never get any heat, so it's fine.
Yeah.
But I've been hearing stories about the south. So
where did it peak for you in the north? Was it?
Well, it was like maybe a few days ago, I think.
Was it like late 20s or did it?
What was the highest? Oh, it must have been like 23 tops.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I also live by the sea, so it's like that cools down a bit.
That's a good point. Nice. So I live in London. I've mentioned that a few times on the podcast, and it has not been 23 degrees, and it's not been pleasant. Like being on the tube as well. Thankfully, already we're going off tangent because I'm going to talk about the tube. The District line is one of the better ones if you've ever been. If anyone is ever wondering, in London there's like 10 different tubes, and like some of them are better than others. One because the District line has aircon and it's mostly above ground, whereas I can get stuff like the Bakerloo, which is like deep below the earth, and the tube is tiny, and there's about 40 people in a tiny carriage. It can be horrific. So it's not been too bad.
Because you're District line, so you get to.
I used to be on the Piccadilly line or the Victoria line for about 20 minutes, and it gets so bad. It's so hot underground, but that's our podcast. We talk about trains and tubes. Apparently,
see you later, everyone. Good show.
Video Games Ahoy, but we're at the front of a train, and we just
video games choo choo.
Yeah, video games choo choo. Well, there we are. You've already done the title of the show, the title of the episode. Zac, should we talk about the podcast before we go into some news?
Yeah. Tell us what's been going on.
So if you are watching us or listening to us for the very first time, then hello. We are Video Games Ahoy, as we've mentioned. We've been doing this for a little while now, about a year. Is it over a year? So,
over a year,
which is I'm more than anything. I'm shocked we're still going, and I'm shocked it's still fun. It's still great, still a lot of fun, and it's just been fun. I'll use that word again. But if you have watched us before or listened to us before, then hello and welcome back. We record these every Thursday live over on Twitch, and then we pop them on YouTube. Patreon goes up straight away. If you're paying for our Patreon, it goes up straight away, as well as some extra goodies you can get over on Patreon. But the YouTube and the podcast, you can listen to it on Friday morning, usually around about 9 o'clock. Otherwise, just come on over and watch us do it live on Twitch. It's a lot of fun, and usually by the end of the podcast is a whole group of people we play some games. Well, we do a quiz usually, but it's just me and Zac today, and it would feel weird if I was just doing a quiz for Zac. Like, I
don't know, that could be fun.
It could be fun.
Like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
It'd be weird if you lost. That would be the weird one.
Yeah, that would be bad.
If you just played yourself and somehow you lost.
I still got that.
You still got zero. Last week's episode was hilarious. So if you didn't watch last week's episode, I give Zac a 0.25 bonus point, and Zac won by 0.25.
All right. Okay, so I did win based on that. But be fair, the question was, what was the song?
Yes.
And
it was the Wii.
I said the Wii channel menu, and the answer was fucking...
Me Plaza. Yeah, it's the same thing. Yeah.
Oh, whatever.
Yeah. It felt controversial, but after the fact, I went and checked online, and on YouTube it was like, this is the Wii channel music. I was like, okay, there we go. So I don't feel so bad that Zac's won by 0.25. Now I find it kind of funny. If anything, I find it kind of funny. But yeah, that's God.
Amazing win.
But yeah, so if you want to watch that episode, like I said, it's on Twitch. It's on YouTube as well. Check us out on YouTube. We've got a couple of episodes of the Hall of Fame. I had to remember that then. which is a lot of fun. We need to do another one of those soon. I can't remember who we got it last time, but it's free. Except there's about 4 locked episodes on Patreon you can go and watch, which are, again, a lot of fun. I love the Hall of Fame. I love it. It's great.
We never really argue on the show, but when it comes to the Hall of Fame,
oh my god, like people get really upset. Me, I've been very upset once. There was a game that didn't get in. I'm not saying what game. It didn't get in. I was there going, I hate these guys. I don't want to talk to them ever again. No.
And then we separate for a week and we're all fine.
And then we're fine by next week until the next episode, and then we talk for a week and we came back.
All right, Jonny, what's been happening?
I was just going to say we're going to stay back on track now. Let's come back together. If you want to watch us and listen to us, go check out the YouTube, Patreon, all those things. We'd really appreciate it. And to those who do actually contribute to us, we really appreciate you. So thank you so much. So let's talk about the news. So the first topic I briefly discussed with Zac beforehand, and I spoke to Rosie, my wife, as well, about something that has become quite a big topic over the last day, essentially, and I think it's really important to talk about it. We're not going to go too in depth because, one, I don't know enough about the story to talk about it in depth, and I don't want to say anything that I like misspeak or anything like that. I think it's really important, but I just think it's important to talk about it because
we want to be really respectful and be really clear about, we don't want to. We're not super qualified to discuss everything that's going on here.
No,
but I think
exactly.
We have to talk about it. Out of respect, we do have to talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. I think we do have to talk about it out of respect. So basically, Activision Blizzard are being taken to court in California because of the way they've been treating the women who work in Activision and Blizzard, how they've been treated across the company for a number of different things. Again, I don't want to go too in depth because obviously for a lot of people it can be some of the subjects and some of the things that have happened that can be quite triggering. So I would say that if you do want to learn more about this, or if you want to read more about it, there's an article on Bloomberg, which is what we're referencing mostly, that you can go and read. It is quite a tough read, and just be aware of that. It does make me despise Activision even more than I already did, but yeah, so a lot of it is to do with the idea that it's run like a frat boy, like college culture thing. It's really sad. And so basically all I wanted to say, and I spoke to Zac about this beforehand, is that when it comes to stuff like this, if people are telling you that the things aren't right or they're being abused in the workplace, we just need to start listening. And I used we as like a collective term. I don't specifically obviously mean me and Zac. I mean everyone. I specifically, I know that this is two guys talking about it as well, and this is mostly dealing with the issues that I say the issues that women have to deal with. Sadly, it's something they do have to deal with, and it shouldn't be the case. So I just wanted to say that it's. If people are saying that they're struggling, or if people are saying that there's an issue, we just need to listen. And I think we just need to show a bit more solidarity with people that do, because there are some bad people who do really, really bad things. And I just thought it was really important for us to just quickly mention that. And if you did, like I said, want to go and read about it, there's an article on Bloomberg. I just wanted to give fair warning as well. But yeah. Zac, did you want to add anything to that, or is there?
I think you put it exactly as we should.
Yeah. Cool.
It's a terrible situation, and I think it's important that we're the ones that are talking about it and that are being understanding, because of course, as two guys, two men, we are also a big we're big proponents in what can be the good change. You know?
And this is a very specific subject to Activision Blizzard, what's happening there. But at the same time, a lot of the time it comes down to a culture where, like, maybe we've got to start saying to our friends, our buddies, if they start doing stuff which we think is troublesome, start going, you know what? Don't, like, we've just got to start. Yeah, I think it's a thing that other people have got to start talking about. It's not just. Yeah, it's a hard subject to talk about, but I just thought we should mention it because it's such a huge story today. But that's an article from Bloomberg. Go and read it if you want to know more information about that. Zac, should we move on to a story that came up last week, and this is a really interesting one. This is something I think we've mentioned before, but Netflix is actually going to move beyond TV shows and films, and it's actually confirmed that they're going to be making games available on the Netflix app. This is again also through Bloomberg. So Bloomberg said that Mike Verdu will join Netflix as Vice President of Game Development, reporting to Chief Operating Officer Greg Peters. The company said on Wednesday, Verdu was previously Facebook's Vice President in charge of working with developers to bring games and other content to Oculus, which I guess is really impressive in a sense. Oculus is a great device. Facebook not so much. But the idea is to offer games on Netflix's streaming platform within the next year. And what intrigues me the most about this is the fact that Netflix aren't going to charge more, apparently. So they're actually not going to charge any extra. It's just going to be something added on top. Now, Zach, I actually was talking about this with a couple of my friends back home in Wales about 2 days ago with this, and I was saying that there could be an issue with Apple, because Apple's whole thing recently has been about the fact that they don't like anything being on their system where they can't charge 30%. So like, especially when it comes to apps specifically, like if it's on the if it's on the web page, you can do whatever you want, but if it's on an app, they want to get 30% out of the games or what they make, what you make. So the interesting thing is, how are Netflix going to get around that? Are they just going to say, well, you can't? Either have to strike a deal where they'll give them extra money, or would they have to like separate the app so when you log into Netflix, you get the option of movies, TV shows, and games, and just remove the games version? Like, how have you seen this? Did you have any thoughts about that? Like, do you think it's going to go well?
I totally understand. So they'll be charged more because they have games on their app. So,
well, with Apple versus Epic, that game store, like that whole thing that's been going on for a long time. Clearly, I have the ghosts of Apple in here throwing things around. It's fine. It's fine. It's just a picture. But basically, so in the Epic versus Apple case, they were basically saying that Apple charges 30% for any games that they put onto their system. So, like for instance, with Fortnite, they used to charge the Fortnite for the app being on there 30%. Which is a lot of money to just basically house the app. They were doing pretty much nothing else. They're just saying, this is the tools you need, and to house it, it's 30%. Now,
you don't charge that for the Netflix app?
No, because it's not. I don't think they do, because I think it's specifically to do with games.
Oh, well, then I think there's a good chance that they would make it a separate app.
Yeah. Well, because the thing I'm thinking about as well is that with Microsoft haven't actually made the app to play xCloud available on Apple. To use Apple, you have to log onto the website, like onto a website, to play xCloud that way and Game Pass. So that's really interesting. Whether like what route they're going to go down. Whether they're going to be able to go, you can play it via the app, but we're going to have to charge you more. Or it'd be interesting to see.
But they may have to adapt. They may have to look themselves and say, this model doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
If entertainment is moving to one platform, which is a very complicated, that's a really new issue. Then they're playing a different game all of a sudden. If games really are that popular, that Netflix will include them in their current paid subscription service, a service that like everyone has. Like so many people have Netflix these days. I think they're going to be. Yeah, I think they're going to be in a difficult position.
Yeah.
I think Apple's going to be in a more difficult position than Netflix is.
Yeah, well, that's one of my friends made a really, really good point. Like, Epic Games are huge. They're a big, big company. Fortnite's one of the biggest things in the world. Netflix are, like, the next level. Like, Netflix are massive. Like, because if Netflix are bringing, obviously, games into it, but, like, their staple is TVs and films, and everyone watches Netflix. Everyone watches that. So it reaches way more. I would argue that more people watch Netflix than... Well, no, it must be true. More people use Netflix than have Apple products. It must be the case, because, like, I don't have an Apple. I don't have an Apple phone. But everyone I know uses Netflix, and maybe half of my friends use Apple, half don't. So, like, it's a lot different to, like, Epic Games being like, yeah, don't charge us 30% for Fortnite. If Netflix is going, we're not paying 30% to house this app. It just feels like there's going to be even more pressure come from there with like Microsoft and Epic as well. It just seems crazy.
In a way, it's been a long time coming for Netflix. They must have been figuring out how best to expand for some time.
Yep.
The number of Netflix originals that get commissioned, there are hundreds of them.
Yep.
And obviously that was their first way of expanding after the streaming situation. They went from doing the DVDs, doing the streaming, then they were like, right, well, we've got all this extra money, we've got to do something with it. Let's make shows where we make all the money.
Exactly.
And then they sit there and go, everyone loves our stuff.
Yeah.
We've got all this money to play with. We've got to make something that outdoes the rest of the competition.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a terrifying precedent to set. It could very well put a lot of the other streaming services on the ropes.
Yeah.
If it puts Apple on the ropes, I mean, it'll be funny.
Yeah.
It'll still be scary because it'll mean that they're really working towards a monopoly of entertainment. But it will be funny if Apple has to yield to them.
I am interested to see how that goes. How they respond to Netflix going, ACP is here. How are you doing, Chikipati? But how they respond to Netflix being like, this is what we want, and we can either, because I think if they start going, you can't use our app, then a lot of people are going to realize maybe I don't want to use Apple products anymore. Maybe I'll use Samsung, whatever. But let's park that story there because I think we're gonna get more information on that soon. The next story I want to talk about is Valve. Have you seen this? Have you seen
I have
the
seen
Steam
it.
Deck?
Yeah.
Ooh, I am intrigued. So if you don't know, Valve has just announced that they're releasing this. They announced a while back. They've actually shown it now, and pre-orders have gone live for the Steam Deck, and it looks like it does very much look like a Switch without the switching going on. But it doesn't play like one. It plays essentially like a small computer, and the things it can do genuinely look amazing. It can play games up to, I think they said up to about a PlayStation 4 Pro level, which is really impressive. And you can add you can buy a version with an SSD drive, and you can add stuff in there as well. It's not easy, but you can add like an SSD drive as well, which is incredible. I saw that and I was like, I genuinely believe that if that could tempt me, it's because especially because the price. I mean, the lower end price was it wasn't too bad. It's £349 for the low end price, but it's only got 64 gigabytes, which is not 349, and then it's $399. And then the next one, which has 256 gigabytes, is £459, and the big one with the SSD, that one's an SSD drive, and then the biggest one, which is a 512 gigabytes with an SSD drive, is, how much is it? £569. Like, that is a lot of money for a small PC when you can start paying for an actual gaming PC for that price. But obviously, it's the same thing we say with the Switch. You pay for a Switch because you can take it anywhere and you can play a lot of games on it that you wouldn't be able to play otherwise.
Well, that's the first thing, isn't it? It's bad news for Nintendo, isn't it? Really, like that's.
It's interesting, yeah.
Nintendo's I mean, I don't know if I want to say that it's the only thing they've got going for them, but it is the thing they've got going for them. It's something that no one else is doing. People can fully justify having, a current gen console, either Xbox or PlayStation, and a Switch.
Yep.
Fewer people would justify having a PlayStation 5 and an Xbox Series X. There are people who are doing it, but there are fewer of those.
Yeah.
I would say, but I think there'll be a lot of it's bad news for Nintendo.
It's interesting. It's interesting because there's a lot of things that it does that a lot of people have been wanting out of Nintendo with the Switch. To like improve like native chat on their notifications, cloud saves, like obviously the stores, like the game stores on there as well. And the thing with Steam is there's so many games, like there's so many, and that's the thing as well. Like any up to a PS4 Pro level, that's really good. That's I mean, there's not that many PS5 games out, so like basically you can play most games on like a mid. It could be a low level, but still a mid level, which is which is fine. So the battery, I've got some details here as well. So the battery life is said to range from about 2 to 8 hours, depending on the activity. Which, again, that's pretty much the same with the Switch. I think the Switch is around about like 4 to 8, which is it's about the same. It's about the same length. But I mean, yeah, if you are playing something that is like seriously high end, it's massive. But they're also going to be selling a dock as well, like the Switch, and you can connect it to like a TV and use it like a computer. So it does add a lot of functions that I think a lot of people were maybe looking for with the Switch. Zac, would you be interested in buying one? Does it intrigue you at all?
Not really. Not at the moment. You know what? One of the things actually I was saying to my housemate the other day actually is that at the moment, because I'm not doing a commute, I work from home.
Yeah.
A Switch is not really all that good to me, and same goes for a Steam Deck. You know, I mean, anything that I want to play. If it's a Nintendo Switch, obviously I'd have the benefit of being able to play Nintendo games.
Yeah.
The Steam Deck doesn't offer that. It's more expensive. I could totally see having one if I was doing the London commute every day. I was doing I've done the 2-hour commute in the morning, the 2-hour commute in the evening.
Oh yeah.
And having a games console is everything.
Yeah,
like it's
great.
So important.
I was on a train. I mean, the reason why I bought a Switch in the first place, and I'm not sure, like the reason when we met, like we were speaking about it.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why I bought a Switch in the first place because we went on tour together. And I knew that I was going to be on a bus for like potentially 8 hours, and it genuinely, like, if I didn't have the Switch on that tour, that would have been infinitely worse because I completed about 4 massive games: Xenoblade Chronicles, Mario Odyssey, like loads of games.
It's such a good chance to get stuck into a single player experience, in my opinion. I don't really do it that often anymore. I find I'm always tired or distracted or whatever. And a lot of time, what I want to play is something stupid. Yeah. Something where I get to go bang, bang, shooty, or just something where I don't have to really like engage. You know? It's like a hard problem with the game I'm going to talk about this week. But being able, if you're on the train or whatever, and I don't know, there's something really unique about that. I had a few. I borrowed my old housemate's 3DS for a few years. It was nice enough to, and I got through so many like great games on there just from that experience. And so, like I say, not really at the moment, not going to be my thing, but maybe one day. Yeah. It's interesting to me that that Valve are going into the console making market. There's so much talk of companies going away from the console making market. I mean, there's been discussion with Nintendo for years that they should drop the consoles and start doing just the games.
I think they're trying to market it as a computer rather than a console, which is why they kind of like, it looks like because you can hook it up to a TV and use it like a computer still. I think that's what they're going to be like. It still is a computer, but you play it handheld, and I think I mean, to be fair, it wouldn't surprise me if they've seen the success of the Switch. I mean, just briefly mentioned, just before we started, there was analysts that came out and said that they were expecting the Switch to sell over 160 million consoles, which would mean it's the best-selling console of all time. Like, it's. I don't think it's going to compete pure numbers-wise, but they've definitely looked at the Switch and gone, how can we get in on this? How can we get in on this? Because it definitely resonates with people, especially commuters, and there's so many people who commute, especially in London. All right, so Zac, I'm gonna brush through the next couple of topics, and then we'll have a chat about games we've been playing. So first things first, this is I am very aware you are the wrong person to talk to about this because it's about football, but it is interesting to get your opinion on this because you don't play football, so like you don't have any of the urge that I do to buy yearly games when they basically update very little. But I think I mentioned it last week, but Konami has announced that the PES brand is officially being dropped and replaced with eFootball, described as a next-generation free-to-play football simulation experience. And it's going to be out on all the consoles apart from Switch, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, Xbox Series S, PS4, PS5, but not the Switch. And it's going to be on mobile as well, which is pretty mad. That's not really the important thing what consoles it's on, even though it is apparently going to do crossplay between all of them. It's more the pivot from paying £50 a year to this is free to play. They have said that there will be single player stuff that you can buy purely as like DLC, like downloadable content. If you want to play the single player, here it is. But They've just gone, we think most people who play football games play online and play against other players. So we're going to go to free-to-play and try and get other people. Do you think this is again, I know this isn't the type of game that you would normally play, but from the outside, do you think that would be a good strategy to get someone involved?
That seems to be the way of online gaming these days, right? Like I'm sure we had a question ages and ages ago on one of the quizzes about how much money Fortnite makes every year. Now, I appreciate you talking about Fortnite, which is one of the biggest multiplayer games of today.
Yeah.
I think, still, probably.
Yeah, probably.
But, yeah, that makes sense. If it probably entices new players because they don't have to pay for it, so they can actually just try it and get into it. And if they can get the same amount of money out of just more players, it's good news, huh?
Yeah, it is interesting because I think it's definitely something like it definitely feels like either a reaction or an attempt to get a reaction out of FIFA, because like FIFA still charges like £60. I mean, FIFA have just said like FIFA have been releasing the same game on Switch for the last 4 years and still charge £50 every year, which is disgraceful. So it does feel like they're trying to make a little niche corner for themselves and going, ours is free to play. My opinion, and I know you you don't like football games, that's completely fine, but my opinion is that PES plays better than FIFA. It does. But FIFA has all like the big names and stuff. So like with FIFA, it always feels like a cosmetic thing. People buy it because it has all the stuff, whereas on PES it plays better, but it doesn't have the cosmetic stuff.
From my perspective, as someone who doesn't play these games, FIFA's the one you hear people talk about.
Yeah.
I don't hear people talk about Pro Evolution Soccer very often. Whereas everyone always says, "Oh, we're going to go play FIFA." I think there might be people who say we're going to go play FIFA when they mean they're going to go play PES.
Yeah, probably.
Because all they're saying is we're going to go play a football game.
Yep.
I mean, maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe that's an exaggeration, but it does seem like the one that, and not just. I mean, that's advertising in of itself. Just the propinquity of having heard the name said enough time.
Yeah.
You just go, "Oh, it must be the one that's."
Yeah, FIFA's definitely in. Like, definitely feels like it's amongst like like you see on Twitter, like people talk about it a lot more than PES, whereas PES does feel like more like the cool kid in the corner being like, "Oh, we're so much better than you." PES is like the nerdy rock band, like the art rock band that's like, "I'm so much better than you," but makes like maybe like a 20th of what FIFA makes. But FIFA's just like, I don't care. I'm here for the party. Yeah. That is a badly described way of trying to explain FIFA and PES, but that's how I feel because I'm the nerd. I'm the nerdy arty shit in the corner. Be like, I'm so much better than you, man. I don't know why I'm smoking a cigarette, but I don't smoke. That's weird.
All the Pro Evolution Soccer.
All of them. The nerds in the corner like me. All right, let's move on. So there's just a couple of quick stories now I will brush through. So if you have a PS5 console, you will get 6 months free of Apple TV Plus. Between now and next year. I mean, there's not many people that have PS5 consoles because they're pretty tricky to get a hold of. I managed to somehow. I don't know how. To this day, I don't know how. But if you do have a PS5, you're lucky to have one. Then you get 6 months free Apple TV Plus, which is nice.
Nice.
Yeah, nice. 6 months. That's quite a long time. Watch Ted Lasso. Ted Lasso's really good. Mythic Quest is also really good. About video games. I'd recommend it. Anyway, Zach, did you know there's an EA Play live tonight at 6 o'clock? I didn't. I completely forgot about it because I try my best to ignore everything that EA says and does.
I've got no interest in seeing what EA
So there is an EA Play at 6 p.m. UK time, which is in about 25 minutes. We'll be done by then.
What did EA do again? What's their thing?
FIFA. All the sports games, Madden. Saying that, though, apparently they're going to be doing a new Dead Space, which I never played, so I have no idea if that's a good or bad thing.
No, I'm so skeptical now of serialized games.
Mm-hmm.
Part of the reason why, as you know, I'm a big lover of the Last of Us series, but I'm praying they don't do another one.
Yeah,
it's not going to be bad. I feel like. I mean, historically, they are pretty good on their thirds. You know, people like Naughty Dog's third game in a series. But serialization. I think Assassin's Creed is what put the sour taste in my mouth.
Yeah, I can imagine Assassin's Creed did that.
Because I was obsessed with that game. I loved Assassin's Creed 2, man. 10 years ago, I was inseparable from that game. Fucking loved it.
Yeah.
And then something in it, now I just don't want to play anything that has anything to do with that. And I think it's true of a lot of series. Halo did it as well, similar time. I was obsessed with Halo 3. And then as it went on, it just started to... It's a bit like... Have we talked about Flanderization a little bit?
No, but go for it.
We talked about the Super Eye Patch Wolf thing about the zombified Simpsons series.
Yes, an amazing series. It's so good.
I mean, basically the concept is the Simpsons went on for a long enough time that it kind of became a joke. It became a corpse version of itself, something like a hollowed version of itself. And I feel like that happens with serialized games that go on too long. They become someone else, and so I mean, the new Dead Space doesn't make me super hopeful.
Yeah, I think that's why Nintendo do a good job with their games, because it can be frustrating for some, and I'll talk about it in a little bit actually, because the game that I'm bringing is a Nintendo game, and I mentioned it last week, so you probably already know what it is. But they always at least try to do something creatively different. And spark off that, and it does seem to work. Whereas, like, if you are basically just doing, like, Assassin's Creed is the biggest culprit, or one of the biggest culprits, basically the same game, pretty much all the way down to the way it plays, but just changing location, like hitting all the same like dramatic beats as well, gameplay beats. Everything is just like, you go here, you grab this, you come back, and it just it's a weird one.
I also appreciate that there is comfort in that, and it's no criticism of people who enjoy that, because I enjoy that too. There are certain games where I just want to see those beats again. I just want to see it refreshed, and that is there's nothing wrong with that. But it just doesn't make me excited. It doesn't make me go like, wait for that. It just makes you go, okay, cool. There's more of that.
Totally.
I fancy it.
Yeah, it's a weird one, because like the really funny thing with Assassin's Creed, again, I'm going to come back to that, is that like they realized it, and then they were like, we're going to take a long break, and then like they've started releasing games every 2 years again, and it's like, oh, well, it wasn't that long, was it? Oh, my phone is going crazy. But yeah, that's it with the news. There's an EA Play at 6 o'clock, so if you want to watch it, tune in. I imagine it could be good if you like EA. There's not many games that I'm excited about. I don't really play EA. I realize there's some companies I just don't play. Like, thankfully, going back to like the first topic we had, I don't really play many Activision games, if any.
No, I was gonna say the last time I played an Activision game was like
Tony Hawk's
games.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, did they do the new one?
Yeah, sadly. I know.
Well, okay, I didn't buy that game.
No.
I borrowed that game.
Borrowed the game with money. All right, Zach, should we talk about games we've been playing?
Yes. Shall I go first?
You go first, because I'm going to have an in defense of this week. ... I've got it here. Yeah,
I like that. Well, I'm gonna kind of do the opposite of that. I'm gonna sort of shoot down a game that I think people like.
Okay.
I actually need to check the title of it, because I forgot what it's called. I think it's called
The Last of Us 2. God, can you imagine?
No, it's called A Night in the Woods. Is that right?
Night in the Woods, I don't know that.
Yes, Night in the Woods. Okay.
Is it a night, as in shining armor, or is it a night in the woods?
Oh, no, night, like nighttime.
Because that would be amazing. That sounds like a great game already, A Night in the Woods.
Night in the Woods. He's just walking around and
just going, where do I
go? Okay.
Okay.
So it starts out, and it's just like a little... I don't really know what the game is. I haven't played that much of it. I played probably 4 or 5 hours, and I'm probably going to keep going. So maybe I shouldn't talk about it now, but I'm going to give you my first thoughts on it. I mean, It's beautiful to look at. Like, it's a really nice game. It's made in Unity, which if you played any games made in Unity, there are certain ways that things work and stuff, and it does feel like that very much. It's got a really, really nice art style, and it's got this it's a story game. There's no combat, so far as I can tell.
Yeah.
In the 5 hours I played. There's no it's just kind of walking around and playing through a story and chatting with people, and not chatting with people you don't want to, walking through environments. And it's about someone who, I'll just give the opening part of it. It's someone who went to university when they were 19, or maybe they were 20. and they came back in their first semester. So in the first 3 months of them being at university, they moved back home because they didn't like it. And it's unclear why. Which is quite, I think actually is a really cool place to start from. There's a lot of like recognizable ideas. If you've ever moved away from your family home, which I think lots of people have, or particularly if you've moved away from your family town, even for a short time, coming back, they really do set that up very well. But I don't know. It's just not. It hasn't gripped me.
Yeah.
It really hasn't gripped me, and I feel part of the reason I want to keep going is because the art style is so beautiful, and I do think the concept is nice. It just hasn't sort of. I don't feel inspired by it. I don't feel like I really want to find out the next part of it.
Yeah.
And this is why I feel like I'm maybe being a little bit unfair, which is why I am going to give it a little bit longer. And if anyone has played it, I would love to hear what your experience of it was, because I do think it's got a lot going for it. The only thing I really desperately don't like, Jonny, you would hate this.
Okay.
Is they have this like music mini game, like a sort of Guitar Hero type thing, right? And you go and pick up your bass guitar, there's a bass guitar in your bedroom, you go pick it up, and it's like, oh, I'm going to play a song. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll play a song. You don't have to. It's optional.
Right.
And the music plays, and normally those things are on the beat, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not.
Oh.
It's not all on the beat. It's completely out. It's obviously been written by someone who's never
played music.
Never heard a song. Like, I don't understand what they're thinking. It's like, it's always like just off the beat. So it's impossible. And then I thought, right, okay.
Is that intentional? Is that intentional to make you feel uncomfortable? Because that would make me feel very uncomfortable.
It makes you so uncomfortable.
Oh.
But so I thought, all right, okay, it's optional. It's not a big deal. It's something they threw in at the end. It's a nice little touch, whatever, no big deal. And then 10 minutes later, it's a mandatory part of the game. Now, you don't have to I don't think you have to do well at it. You do have to sit and experience like 3 minutes of pressing the buttons at the wrong time. Horrible. I hated that. And that actually is what made me put the controller down. It's a little bit petty, but like, it's really uncomfortable. Like, don't do that. No. Don't put a music thing in your game if you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Is that what actually made you put the game down and like, I'm done?
Genuinely, I was I was sitting having like a relaxed time playing through the story, and then that happened, and I was like, initially I was like, this is a bit annoying. By the end of it, I was like, I feel a bit stressed now. I feel a bit like... And then one of the characters has the gall to turn around and go, that wasn't very good, was it? And I was like, oh, fuck you.
I took that personally.
Yeah, I did take it personally.
Throw away the controller to the TV.
I was like, right, well, maybe I don't want to play the bass guitar anymore. Well, yeah. So I'm going to keep going. I think maybe there's more interesting things to come. We'll see. Anyway, look, I've had my moment. You get the meat and bones.
Get it off your chest.
We've got to get to the meat and bones of today's episode, which is what we coined a shallow dive.
Yeah, it is a shallow dive. Are you so we are going to talk very briefly. I say briefly, it's probably going to take like 10 minutes because I do want to discuss with Zac as well, because this feels like if I'm going to talk about this game, it feels like you're probably the best person to talk about it too. Yeah. Considering that I know you haven't played it before, but you have played the other ones, and that is The Legend of Zelda: Skyward Sword. So, so basically, I just want to talk a few things about my experiences before when I first played it compared to now, and like what I think, because I think this is a really interesting. It's a really interesting port. Because they've actually done a lot of things over the first 2 hours of the game. Like, when I remember when we first found out that they were bringing Skyward Sword to the Switch, and they were like, "These are the things that have been changed," and everyone was like, "Is that it? Are you not doing anything else?" I was one of them. I was like, "Oh, they need to do more." Turns out they did a hell of a lot more. And like, I think one of the guys, I think it was John Cartwright from Nintendo Life, did a comparison video of the first 2 hours. The first 2 hours from the Wii game and how long it took to do the same 2 hours in the Switch game. And it included things like being able to skip dialogue, skip text, skip scenes, all those things. And he skipped all the stuff, and he was trying to play it from the perspective of someone who's played the game before and just wants to, like, just doesn't know the story, just wants to get to the action.
Yeah.
The mandatory 2-hour opening tutorial took him 15 minutes.
Wow.
Like, That is a substantial difference. Like that is, I mean, you can still do everything that you did in the original. They've not locked it out. All they've done now is just made it optional, which is a big deal because one of the best things about Breath of the Wild, one of the and I know, obviously, I mentioned Breath of the Wild, but it's important because it is the game that came before Breath of the Wild, and lots of things they got wrong.
Made them make it, right? Yeah. It's the one that made them go, shit, we've got to do something.
Lots of things that happened in Skyward Sword made them go, maybe we should try something new. But to be fair, lots of things they did in Skyward Sword, and there's the one thing I've really truly realized, made them go, okay, we can use this. Like climbing is, it's there. It's there like it is. Like the stamina meter, that's there. There's like the I know it's in Wind Waker, but the paraglider, the parasail as well. That's there as well. Like, there's so many things that I look at and go, oh, shit, yeah, I didn't notice this the first time because it's been 10 years since I played Skyward Sword. So, yeah, so the only thing I really wanted to talk about was just that, like, personally, I was genuinely unsure whether I was going to enjoy it because I know when I first played Skyward Sword, there was a lot of emotional, like, I was going through a rough time personally, and Skyward Sword came along at the right time for me to be like, I really like this game, and like I've always been kind of defensive of it. Possibly just because of that, possibly because I just played it at a time in my life when I needed to play a game that I would just really enjoy. There's lots of things that haven't aged well, and I think that's really interesting as well when you play a game that's like 10 years old. We've talked about it loads of times. Like even a Zelda game, like Ocarina of Time, you play that and got, there's loads of things that just not aged well from a gameplay perspective. But it's stuff like I think the biggest thing, obviously, that people have complained about though is the combat, and so they've mapped. I would say on this run of Skyward Sword, I've used the motion controls for about 20% of it, and I felt like I wanted to play with the buttons because I played with the motion control before. I don't need to do it. I did it the first time and I liked it. Button controls are good. They're perfectly fine. Like, anyone that hasn't played Skyward Sword before and really does not want to play with the motion controls, honestly, the button controls are fine. It takes a while to get used to. It takes about half an hour. And then as soon as you're used to it, it's not perfect. It's not as fluid as any other Zelda game, because obviously that's mapped to one button. But it's still fine. It still works. And it's one of those things where, like, it helps people get over the motion control issues, which so many people had a problem with. And then you just get down to the story. And there's a couple of things I would say. There's 3 things I think Skyward Sword does that are top tier Zelda. One of them is the dungeons. Like, legitimately top tier Zelda. There's like, I'd say it's about 4. I think there's about 6 dungeons. I'd say about 4 of them are legitimately like must play dungeons. They're genuinely brilliant. One of them is you're in this old factory, and like you keep hitting these like time stones, and you hit these time stones, and it opens up like a specific area, but outside of that area it remains the time you are, whereas if in the time stone it reverts back to a time that's like 1,000 years ago. And I just love that. I love that because stuff will pop up like out of nowhere as if it's like 1,000 years ago. It'll walk past the area that's been designated after you've hit the time stone and then disappear. And it's like, that's really cool. And there's so many like little bits like that. But yeah, the dungeons, music, honest to God, I knew the music was good. It's the only it's the first Zelda game to have a full orchestra, and you can tell it's genuinely. And do you know, like a lot of people complained about Breath of the Wild in that like it didn't have that like Zelda sound, you know, it's just like a big orchestra like backing you and cheering you on. This has it like all of the way through the game.
The only one that has it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really, Twilight Princess was still MIDI.
No, still MIDI, and Breath of the Wild has the orchestra, but it doesn't really utilize it in the way that I guess lots of people would have liked. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I think the music is perfect for Breath of the Wild and what it does. But yeah, the music.
What do you think when it comes to Breath of the Wild 2? Which would you choose?
I'm a sucker for the. Honestly, I am a sucker for. I from a gameplay perspective, I think Breath of the Wild works with its music because everything, like the music fills the spaces that you're in because it's such a wide open space. Like I love the fact that the music fills that. It's not my favorite Zelda soundtrack, but it makes sense. I've got a feeling Breath of the Wild 2 is going to have a bigger soundtrack, though, because the trailer they showed had this big, like, opening thing, and it feels grander.
When you picture the trailer for the original Breath of the Wild...
Oh, yeah. Had that.
I mean, it's pretty great.
Yeah.
It's one of my... I think we've discussed it.
We have discussed this before.
We both sit and watch that trailer.
I watched it last week. I was like, this is the best trailer of all time. Best trailer of all time.
It's one of the only trailers I can picture. I can think of a handful of game trailers over the years that have really hit me. I mean, that was we've talked about me getting another Switch, and it's always every week it's would this make you get one, and I go like, I don't know. Another trailer like that one.
Breath of the Wild 2.
That trailer is exactly what made me buy it and want it in the first place. Anyway, whatever.
The third thing I was going to say, like, all I was going to say is the three things that are like top tier Zelda, and I completely will stand by this. Characterization and story, like as a complete whole, like it might be my favorite Zelda because she's one of the most interesting Zeldas.
Wait, you're saying Skyward Sword might be your favorite Zelda?
Oh no, Zelda the character might be one of my favorite iterations of the Zelda character because she's just got there's just so much personality, and the game is gorgeous as well. It's a genuinely beautiful game to look at, and they have done an amazing job with it. I am super impressed by what they've done. But I would say those three things. There are other things that I wouldn't say are particularly great. It sometimes feels a bit empty, and not in like a Breath of the Wild where we're like, story-wise that it's empty because it's like people. It just sometimes feels a bit like, meh. And there's a lot of traversal and not like, like Wind Waker. One of the issues with Wind Waker is traveling around on the little boat when you didn't have the sale of double time.
Yeah.
Is it the sale of double time? Double speed.
No, you're thinking of the Song of Double Time.
So I'm thinking of Song of Double Time, but I'm thinking of the sale in Wind Waker HD, which makes you go twice as fast. Quick sale, there we are. Like, using the quick sale and then going back to the original is like, holy shit, this is slow. And that's kind of how it feels like with Skyward Sword. Like when you were in the when you were around Skyloft, it takes ages to get everyone. It's a bit of a bummer.
It's a bit of a problem with it just being old, you know what I mean? Like, when Wind Waker was new, that's the pace of games at the time. 2003 games were not moving as fast as they are now.
No.
Whereas now the expectation is, right, let's get on with this.
Yeah.
I have a question for you.
Yes, go for it.
The Skyward Sword. Does it feel like a fundamentally broken game with some patches put in, or does it feel like a fully formed game that has now been has filled in the gap?
So you mean the HD version in comparison to the Wii version?
And I'm talking about with regards to the changes that have been made specifically for.
I would say I wouldn't say. The thing I would say about Skyward Sword is that most Zelda games are still better than most normal games. It's just not that, like but it really is true. Like it's still better than most games. Like even purely going on the graphics. Although sorry, not the graphics. The way it looks, because it's obviously different to the graphics. Like the style of the game. It's gorgeous to look at. The music is good. The story is great. Like there's so much about it which is genuinely top tier in gaming. The things that like hold it back are the motion controls for some people, and basically just traversal in general is like really slow. It can be really boring, and it feels like it just feels like it wasn't their best Zelda, but it still feels like a good game, if that makes sense. And all it does, it just, for instance, if the original Wii game, what I would say, the best way to describe it is, I would never go back and play it on the Wii now. It's pointless. It's obsolete. If you have a choice to play them on the two consoles and you have both, there's no point playing the Wii one. The Skyward Sword HD is just better in pretty much every way. There's nothing on it that's worse than the original, which I guess is the best thing you can ask for. Well, not the best thing you can ask for, but like if someone's going to say, I'm just going to port this, it's all you can really ask for. They haven't remade it. It's a remaster, so there's not really much more they could have done without fundamentally changing the game. And that's a remake. That's not a remaster, and that's not what they did. So based on that, it's if you're going to play Skyward Sword, play on the Switch. That's all I'd say. I just wanted to talk about that for a little bit of time, just purely because we haven't got a quiz, sadly, because it's just me and Zach, like I said. So I just wanted to talk about Skyward Sword because I'm actually having a lot of fun playing it.
How far are you into it now?
I've probably got about 4 hours left. Like not long. Yeah, well, I was on 2 coach journeys that lasted about 4 hours last week, so I had a lot of time to play it on the bus. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I'm going to be sad when I finish it, but I think pacing wise, I'm getting to the point where I'm glad it's finishing. Any longer, and I'd be like, okay, this is starting to piss me off. But yeah, that's my Skyward Sword. That's, what do we call it? A shallow dive. Skyward Sword shallow dive. There we go. But yeah, that's the end of podcast number 61. Thank you very much for watching and listening today. If you enjoyed the show, then please follow us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Patreon, all those things. Come join us on the Discord. We'll put a link in the description. And tell your friends. That'd be great. I think that's it, really. Greenman Gaming, we're affiliated with. It's in the description down there. You can check that out. Discord is down there. YouTube, probably watching it on there. If not, we're on YouTube, like I said. Zac, you can play any games in the upcoming weeks? So you can do any streaming?
For streaming? Possibly not. I have to go down to London the next few days. Although, with that being said, that might mean I come and visit you.
Yes.
Should we do a stream?
Well, we could do a stream. I've been chatting to Zac about potentially doing a stream. We won't reveal what just yet, but potentially doing a stream.
That'll be really fun. To do one together.
Yeah. All right, Zac. Let's just leave it there. Thank you so much again to everyone. Really appreciate you watching and supporting us. And I guess we'll see you next week.
Ahoy!
Ahoy!